So definitely you will have a lot of interest, and the Pahalgam attack is one of the incidents that has attracted, absolutely, it has kept the nation captivated for the past 12 days. And almost everybody is waiting with bated breath for Prime Minister Modi to launch an attack on Pakistan. Odisha re kouthi जोठी चा दुकान में गपसप होची से माने गुटी कथा कहते पाकिस्तान को उड़े दिए, you know. So that is the narrative, and in that background we must look at, try and understand what the government of India is doing or not doing. What is the expectation of the general population? What are the sentiments? Sentiments are very high. I mean, people are disturbed. People are expecting a quick rebuttal, a quick strike. So we'll try to understand. We'll try to understand the background, because it's very important. You know, Pulwama is not an isolated terrorist incident, correct? You know, if you see the entire gamut of activities over the past 10 centuries, 12 centuries, then things fall in place. You know, it's not an isolated incident, and so if it is not understood in the broader spectrum of time span, then the reaction is what the general public is saying. You know, since they have attacked, let's go and strike them. You know, it doesn't happen that way. Why? I'll tell you. Tackling terrorism is very difficult, you know, and if anybody has followed the war in Gaza, you will understand how difficult it is to wipe out terrorism, even if you have absolutely overwhelming force. You know, Gaza is a small strip of land. You know, I have served in Lebanon in the same area, and I have served as a chief humanitarian officer, where I used to deal with these Palestinians, used to visit their Palestinian camps, and take over, dead bodies and prisoners from the Israeli Defense Forces, hand them over to the villages, and I handled Kurdish refugees. So I know I've lived there. From Damascus to Tel Aviv, I used to frequently travel up and down and see all these things. It's a 40-kilometer long stretch of land mass with 10-12 kilometers width at its maximum place. 2 million people. It has been burned out to smithereens over the past year and a half, from October 2023 onwards, 2024 onwards. So still, Israel has not been able to retrieve its 58 refugee hostages. Out of which maybe about half of them are living, the other are dead bodies possibly. So that is
half of them are few
dead already. So they just were handing over of dead bodies. Even that they are not able to do it. And after bombing for almost 14-15 months, when the truce happened in January, you would have seen that Hamas was able to come out and showcase, handover of these captives in front of the media, wearing stars uniforms and all the regalia of their outfit. So that is the nature of terrorism. So it's very difficult to snuff out terrorism by, simple kinetics. That's what must be understood, actually. So therefore, and compare that to Pakistan. And Gaza is, wise, told you, 40 by 10 kilometers, and here 2 million people. And here is an entire country, with a huge population and the landmass and the depth. And of course, not to forget our historical animosity between these two countries. In this context, one thing must be understood. There is a lot of hesitation in calling it out. It's a civilizational war. It is nothing out of that. It is not a terrorist attack in that sense, and should not be taken as a one-off thing. It's a civilizational war which goes back almost 1,000 years. So between, say, the 13th century, when the Turks and Mongols and all these people came, and till the British came, say, till about 17th century, 18th century, mid-17th century, more than 70 million Hindus were butchered. So more than 70 million Hindus were butchered in the continent, in the subcontinent, you can say that. Even when the British came, we had the first war of independence in 1857, almost 6,80,000 Hindus were butchered in the aftermath of the mutiny. Then there were those man-made famines, man-made famines killed at least 18 to 20 million during the Mughal era. I mean the period between 13th to 18th century, and between the 18th century and 20th century till the British left, another 80 million perished. And at the same time, conversion and intimidation and rape and all these activities were a continuum through this 1,000 years. India got, the subcontinent got partitioned on religious lines. The 1947 partition happened on religious lines. It's not a geographical one. It was on religious line basis. A homeland for Muslims were created in Pakistan. What happened during that time? More than 2 million Hindus were butchered. A similar number, or possibly more or less, depending on who wrote the history, were killed from the other side also as they transited out of the country. There are, you read Train to Pakistan by Kushwant Singh, very poignantly says how what are the times of those partition days. So post independence, there have been any number of riots throughout the country. Terrorism in the current form in the subcontinent came in the 80s, because by 71 war was a landmark war, 1971 war, when we liberated East Pakistan. We took 90,000 prisoners of war. And it is perhaps the largest prisoners of war ever taken in any combat, any war in the history of warfare. But our politicians failed, I'll say that, because we were not able to settle the Kashmir issue. With 93,000 prisoners, under you, in your, grabbed by you, you should have been able to make them sign on anything and get anything done. But we didn't. I'll say a tactical victory in the field by the army, which lost almost 12,000 soldiers in that battle, was turned into a strategic defeat. The Simla agreement, for those of you, those who talk about peace and all, was a complete failure in terms of settling the subcontinental divide. So, but Pakistan learned its lesson in 71. So when opportunity came by 80, the seeds of terrorism was sown by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto during those times, and it was Ziaul Haq, the military dictator in the 80s, who actually practiced it, bleeding India by 1,000 cuts. So they officially adopted terrorism, which is unofficially, in the sense that terrorism as a tool for international coercion was adopted by them. And like we are an IT giant, infotech giant, they are international terrorist giant. Starting from, say, World Trade Center bombing in 1993, that guy, Yusuf Hamzai or something was his name. Then his uncle, Khalid Mahmood, who was involved in the 9/11 bombing in 2001. Okay, Chacha Bhatija hai. Both are in US prison. To the London bombing in 2005, everywhere you will find the footprint of Pakistan. The people have, if they're not Pakistanis, they would have come, trained in Pakistan and gone back. So international terror as an instrument of state policy has been adopted by Pakistan for the past at least 40 years. So this is going to go on. We had Uri in 2016. We had the Parliament attack in 2001. We had the Mumbai attacks in 26 September 2008. More than 175 people were killed. If Kasab was not arrested, if it was not grabbed by a assistant sub-inspector, you would have thought it would have gone into this general narrative of saying that, they possibly were homegrown terror, It would have been brushed under the carpet. It is not so. That brushing under the carpet is the exact reason why we have not been able to very firmly handle terrorism. We still get the image, at least from the Pakistani's point of view and the general UMA of that year, that we are a soft state. We are not able to handle terrorism as firmly as we can because we don't call it out. Even the Kasab incident was a, open and shut case. He was caught shooting. He gave out all the intel about the handlers in Pakistan and all that thing. So everything was there. But still the court case took about, I think, 8 years or something, And there would have been many jibes about how Indian state was feeding Kasab biryani, after he having been party to this manslaughter in. Then in 2016, where 19 soldiers were killed when they attacked one of our army camps. We had Pulwama in 2019, 40 CRPF Jawans were killed, and now Pulwama has happened. Through all this, we have not gone into a war. Why we have not gone into a war? Because it doesn't pay. Terrorism cannot be tackled like that. For example, just look at Pulwama. These people attacked in a spot which is about 150 kilometers from the border, from the line of control, LOC. इसके अंदर कैसे आए वो? इतना अंदर कैसे आए? And they came at least 3 to 4 weeks. They roughly say between 1st and 7th, I think, they were already lodged in Pahalgam. I have been there, I have trained there, and I've been deployed there in 2000 when the valley was in the peak of terrorism. It's a different matter that I am a helicopter pilot, so I used to fly from post to post, but I have the general feeling. I didn't travel on road so much, so other than going to the airport or something like that. Rest I used to fly that area, but I have seen the operations. And I can say that since 2000, when I was deployed there and now, there has been a tremendous change. The attacks by terrorists and the casualties have come down by more than 90%. It is off and down. That's why you're noticing it. Otherwise, imagine between, say, 87, 88 and 2000, in those 10, 12 years, more than 10,000 Kashmir Pandits have been butchered. I don't know how many of you have seen the Kashmir Files movie. Those who have seen would understand. It's not a exaggeration. I must tell you that. It is subdued to a great extent because it was for the masses and there were a lot of cuts and there was a lot of censorship which happened. But it tells you a story. It just tells you a story of continuum. Kashmir is supposed to be in our Sanatan Dharma is supposed to be a Sarda pit. So there used to be thousands and thousands of temples at one time. And our Sanskrit scholars who used to go to Banaras for training, for learning, after they graduated from Banaras, they used to be told that if you can, then go to Kashmir to finish your studies. Means it was at a higher level. It was at a higher level than even Banaras in terms of Vedic learning. So, how did it turn to the current situation? It's important to see things from that background. Therefore, if Pulwama has happened and 26 people have been killed, there are some things which are very peculiar to Pulwama, and that is why there is greater clarity in terms of discussing the issue threadbare. And one of the things was that unlike other terrorist attacks, where you could say okay, these are skilled troops or CRPF or attack, this was a targeted killing. They identified Hindus, they identified, reaffirmed Some of them were asked to put their bloody trousers down, and they were shot dead, cold-blooded in front of their wives and children. That included that naval pilot, whose images you would have seen on the television screen. So if those who said there is that terror has no religion and all is not a it's no more statement which holds any water. They have a religion. I mean, you look around the still, whether it is, they had a few, in February, they had a NATO conference in Frankfurt. And the day Vice President J.D. Vance was to arrive in the afternoon, in the morning, a car plowed into a pavement and killed about 20 people, 12 people. Those Afghan refugees. And I mean, I can narrate any number of what happens in Paris, what happens in London, what happens in Berlin, in the European continent. 9/11, of course, is a big demonstration because it played out on the TV. So, what should India do in this?
Sir,
I think.
From my side, sir, do you think that you have told that intentionally they have asked the people about your religion and they kill? So, that it is a political and strategic that to create a disturbance between different section of the society like Muslim and Hindu?
Not exactly. That's not the intention of the thing. I mean, from you look at the situation in Pakistan, then you will understand this. In Pakistan, the Pakistani army has been battered for the past, mostly about past 6 months. In Balochistan, they face, tremendous amount of attacks. Hundreds of their, soldiers are being butchered. The CPEC corridor, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is under great threat. Number of Chinese people engineers have been kidnapped or killed, and the Gwadar port is going nowhere. So there was tremendous amount of discomfort in the Pakistani army. Having faced so much of reversal in Balochistan, and now what has happened is, if you would have read, I think yesterday they have had a big firefight on the main transit point between Afghanistan and Pakistan in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Where almost like 80% of the Pakistan-Afghanistan trade, whatever they may be trading on guns only, possibly, or terrorists, but whatever. 80% of the trade goes through that post, and that post has been attacked. They are under firefight. The Afghans, the Taliban was building a post, and the Pakistani said they are building it on our land, and that's how they fired upon them. That's the accusation from Pakistan side. The Taliban is saying, these are old posts, we are just redoing it, and these people are fired. So, but it is going on, and the trade has been halted on both sides. It happened about 4 days back. Hundreds of trucks are lined up. So, Pakistan army was under tremendous pressure. So, when the army is under tremendous pressure, and if you want the nation behind you, the best thing is to point a finger outside, trigger a war. The whole nation will, coalesce behind you. Then your esteem, ego, standing, your capacity to maneuver, manipulate, grab power, all this becomes easier. And with India, they know that the best thing is to, when a country is developing in a very rapid, we are the fastest developing nation for the past 3-4 years, at least. Largest, fastest growing, large economy, growing at about 7.6, 7.7 per annum, which under very stressful conditions, because post-COVID, things have been very difficult. So under the circumstances, terrorism is something they have tested, as I said, for the almost like 40 years now. So it was just another way of, and the Valley since 2019, after Article 370 was abolished, has been picking up. Last year there were more than 3 million tourists visiting the Valley. And this year you would have seen, by end March, they started showing those tulip gardens and such like things. And there was a tremendous amount of interest in the Indian tourists to go and visit Kashmir. So you disturb the economy, you finger a country and trigger war. And that way, the whole nation will coalesce behind you. You know, you have lost your credibility. You know, Pakistan has lost its credibility because of what is happening in Balochistan and what's happening in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Apart from the trouble in Karachi, the Sindh, which is not very active, it's dormant, but it has been simmering for a long time. The Sindhis also want to separate from the Punjabis. So balkanization of Pakistan is a real threat, and therefore, under these circumstances, it is an opportunity for them to trigger just when the tourism season was picking up, and what Deepak said is also right in a sense that unlike the other time, this time they demonstrated that they're targeting Hindus. They demonstrated that. They would have killed many people actually. I mean, you just have to spray bullets around. They didn't do that. They also played it like like a screenplay, pointing out. I mean, if they killed the officer, they could have killed his wife. It's another bullet, no? But they did not. No. So the whole thing was to message India and to trigger a reaction. And the reaction they are hoping is a war. So should India fulfill their hope? No. 71 over for all that victory that we did, it was a defeat. I mean, Bangladesh is back to becoming East Pakistan, and thousands are being killed every day.
Sir, one question, do you think that this is a intelligence failure from India's side? Because how these people came and they killed.
Now about intelligence failure. Nobody counts the 99 intelligence success. Almost if you go back the months and say last 1 year since there have been a lot of infiltration, a lot of firefights in Jammu region. Correct? Means a lot of terrorists are being killed. How are they being killed before they can kill? That is because of intelligence success. But this intelligence success are not engineering success. The people don't count it that way. One failure can happen. I mean, after all, I have been to Israel, and you have seen the images of the blue line and that nearly 9 feet wall, which is erected to separate Palestine from Israel. And then 7 October happened.
Sir,
so
this subject is a state subject or it is a army? So because Jammu and Kashmir is domain.
Intelligence is a government of India subject. There is no doubt of that. But security is a state subject. A minister from Omar Abdullah's cabinet a few days before this attack has publicly stated, a member of parliament, a Lok Sabha MP, has publicly, you can Google it and you will find the statement, that tourism is not congruent with our sentiments and our religion and our practices. And it is altering, or it is altering the ethos and culture of our valley. He's given this statement, and this attack has happened a few days after that. If I was the government, I would count him as an overground worker of the terrorists, OGWs. Just like the poniwalas or the restaurant owners or the chain of hotels. There were 10 intelligence bureau officers who were holidaying in that package. Who passed on that details to them?
So you are telling that the local people also supporting these terrorists?
There is no doubt about it, because simply because Article 370 has been withdrawn 5 years back doesn't mean that the sentiments have changed. Sentiments will take a generation to change, at least. I have operated in 2000. Let me be frank, being an army man, that when you enter a village, round up the people, beat up the elders, you thrash them to take out some intelligence. There are children who are also looking at it. I mean, they see the people in combat uniforms in the Indian Army coming and hitting their grandfather or father. Some of them are picked up, some of them never return. All these things happen. I mean, that's real life. I mean, you can't kind of glamorize it anymore. That is how terrorism is fought. That's how situation was because of Article 370. There are many things you couldn't do. Now things are different. That's why since 370 has been withdrawn, there has been tremendous amount of you can read about the development that has taken place in terms of the railway extension, the tourist footfall. 3 million people is a great number. So there were huge number of OGWs, overground workers, sympathizers, and an entire ecosystem which functions. And not only in Kashmir, it happens all over India. You know, you have a riot in like West Bengal, and a chap is very arrested, and bill is landed in Supreme Court overnight, and you know, a guy like Kapil Sibal or a Manu Singh B or a Dushan Dave bloody appears for that chap. You know, Dushan Dave, you can meet him with all your bloody savings, life savings.
How they are fighting.
How they find a case for a guy like that? So there's an ecosystem, chain of NGOs, so-called NGOs, but there are organizations which are actively abetting this war. It's a continuous war. So people have to be aware of these things. You know, people have to be patient. We have to have strategic patience. We can't lose our development narrative simply because somebody is poking you.
No, what is your sir, like intuition in future? So India is going to retaliate this one because
Yes,
our prime minister.
we will retaliate. We will retaliate. It's not that we have not been retaliating. We retaliated with the surgical strike after 2016. We did the Balakot strikes after 2019. So we'll retaliate. But remember, even in 71, when the political leadership took a decision to fight a war, the army said 9 months. Wait. You know, they took when Madam Gandhi wanted it in April. The war happened in December. You have to find, you know, choose your own time, choose your own target. You know, those hideouts near the border, the terrorist hideouts have been emptied out. Obviously, they will expect a strike. So by striking them, what do you get? So you have to choose. You have to wait. You know, there is Pakistan Army and the ISI, Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Economically, the IWT, 80% of the Indus system, which is 6 rivers, goes into Pakistan. 90% of the irrigation is on this. The hydropower is dependent on this. You choke that, you flood, you choke the water supply, you make them suffer in their agriculture, you're going to hit them hard. This will take time. It is not television friendly. I mean, it doesn't happen in a spectacular way, the way you can, you know, depict a Balakot strike, but these are effective ways. And the government of India is doing that. Trade, complete ban on trade. You know, in 2019-20, imports from Pakistan was like $500 million worth. We get very little sand and namak and things like that, some dry fruits and things like that. But even that has come down to from 500 million to less than 1 million last year. We have imposed 200% tariff on Pakistan. They still get around through Sri Lanka and all, because we have got SAFTA, the South Asian Free Trade Agreement and things like that. So we have to be more vigilant. So you can break them economically. You can break their back diplomatically, which Ambassador May will speak about. But there are more effective ways than going into a war, which will be foolishness. But we will strike. We'll strike at a point and time of our own choosing.
So I think Sir will also waiting for now. So now we'll request Monas have to
But without this also I can speak.
Yes, guys will not be.
I have to hold it.
So you can see it.
Why don't you have a proper speaker and concentrate here in a court?
Because they're watching.
Can everybody see me? Dushimu, it basi kahiyo na thi